over the next 45 minutes, we're going to take you through the slides, and you will see myself presenting. I'm Claudio Vittori. I'm a principal analyst working in the electrification group, and I'm now covering more a slightly more commercial angle on the product. So if you have any questions at the end, yeah, you can feel free to reach out to me. And Peeyush will introduce himself in a bit, and he's one of the person on the technical side that is currently taking care about the technology module product. And let me start with the topic. And before starting, we would like to ask you. We would like to pose a poll questions, and I know there is it's been like we have been having a couple of years in which the electrification industry is slowing down a bit, or is slowing down if compared with the previous expectations on the market. So what we would like to know from you is exactly what's the situation today. What do you think? What percentage of people do you think are open to buy an electric vehicle in the current scenario? We have just create some classifications here. Feel free to answer the questions, and over the next couple of slides, I'm going to take you through the results we are gathering from our consumer survey, and then we will compare at the end which was your expectation against what has been so far the consumer sentiment towards the electric vehicles. And let me give you maybe a few seconds to answer. We have a few attendees responding already, and in the meantime, maybe I can introduce you the consumer survey angle. We launched this consumer on a yearly base, covering more than 8,000 respondents, and we are about to increase it. And this is one of the element that is also supporting us on when we apply certain take rates of technologies and into the vehicle side. We have like 1/3 of respondents currently participating in the numbers in the response. So let's wait still a few seconds to gather your feedback, and then we can proceed to introducing you to the topic. Great. I think we can now move on. Perfect. Okay. So yeah, thanks again for joining. As I said in the beginning, we in this webinar we are going to take you through the insights we are gathering, and we gather it from the development of a new product. This new product is called e-mobility technology module. Is intended to be a new holistic tool that we would like to promote to all our clients and to the general industry when it comes to vehicle planning. The other value of the database is to offer you a kind of multidimensional knowledge and understanding about the vehicle development when it comes to electrified vehicles, so plug-in, range extender, and full electric cars. If we move on, into the next 45 minutes, we are going to take you through a set of insights that have been classified, as you can see on the screen. But before entering into the topic, and we are going to take you through some of the status quo of the situation of the general automotive industry for now, the passenger vehicle market until now, passing into what are the expectations and what has been the market so far for the electrified vehicles, and looking into the consumer survey, which is one of the premise on ourselves developing the product. And then Peeyush will take you through a set of insights, as I said, that we've been drawing from our data research, and then I will definitely jump in again and take you through some of the major insights you can draw from the numbers in terms of comparing cars and drawing effective conclusions, and then definitely opening up for the Q&A session. As I said, we're going to start with the EV transition and the consumers on the EV transitions. And the first slide I would like to show is a little bit about the global vehicle demand. So if we look back from 2005 until what is the future in 2035, so in the 30 years lifespan of vehicle sales expectations, we can definitely see that we have been experiencing since 2010 until 2020, until the COVID time, we have seen an interesting evolution, an interesting growth rate, year-on-year growth rate of the sales vehicle, achieving or in about to achieve 100 millions of cars to be sold yearly. And then, of course, COVID came, and in 2019, 2020, and then we had like the Russia-Ukrainian war, which was also impacting industry, which has impacted importantly the light vehicle passenger market. And then over the next 10 years, we are expecting a steady growth that is now targeting to achieve again or to even pass the 100 million vehicles of units by 2035. So yeah, with the kind of tumultuous years, we are having a passenger vehicle market that is expected to still grow and to expected to achieve 100 million vehicles in the forecastable horizon. But if we move to the next slide, we can see what is going to be the evolution, or what has been so far the evolution of light vehicle of plug-ins and pure electric vehicles into the new light vehicle registrations. And as you can see, we are comparing 2019 until 2024. 2025 numbers are still to be finalized. And we can see at the first glance that China in general, since 2021, is kind of outperforming all the other regions. And when we look specifically in 2024, we can see that the number of the shares of plug-in and pure electric vehicles achieve and trust the 45% of market share in the region, which is effectively 2 times or more what has been the percentage and the penetration rate achieved into the key European markets as well as United States. So we have a transition that is happening, is maybe slowing down in certain regions, with some other regions where, of course, the penetration is much higher in terms of electrified solutions. But what's the rationale of it? And if we move to the next slide, we can definitely have a look about one of the aspects that I briefly mentioned in the beginning. So on a yearly basis, our team conducts a consumer survey that covers thousands of respondents in a global scale. And one of the first questions that we used to pose to our clients is to the respondents is the confidence towards alternative solutions when it comes to pure electric vehicles or hybrid solutions. And the chart on the left represents the percentage of people that feel comfortable on and open to buy and to move towards electrified or plug-in or hybrid solutions. And we can see, of course, that the hybrid solution has been overall generally always preferred by our consumers. So there is like more confidence or remaining on engine-based solutions with electrified propulsion rather than full electric vehicle for our consumers. And we can also see the other very good insight that we can draw is that apart from the COVID time, or right after the COVID time in 2021, we had a kind of rebound effect where the confidence and the willingness to move into new technologies was much higher. But then since 2021, we have had a kind of slow and steady, a steady decrease in terms of confidence, which is still happening nowadays in 2025 numbers, which have been already recently published. And one of the most interesting elements of this transition has been probably summarized into the right-hand side of the slide. So when we do ask about the reasons behind or the reasons against the purchase of electric vehicle or hybrid vehicle, then of course the situation really changes on a regional base. So every region, every country has its own kind of pattern of that. But we can easily try to summarize on a global scale the situation across or around the 3 main reasons that are listed here. So the 3 main barriers at the moment for moving to the new technologies are about the charging aspect, the time, and the infrastructure remains a kind of still perceived as a bottleneck for most of the consumers. The other aspect is still about the range. So the efficiency of the cars are still not, for most of the consumer, enough to make this switch. And there is also a pricing issue that remains as a constant into most of the consumers. So knowing that, we thought that there will be a need for a new tool to be provided to our clients, and specifically for all the for all the car manufacturers and the major suppliers, which is now in the next slide. In this slide, we can see what is the essence of our product. So this product has been built around sales forecast, so it's based on the number of cars that are expected to be sold in a given horizon in all the regions at the country level. And this tool is reached by a set of technical parameters that are around information about performance, dimensions, and load bearing, as next to the evolution of the battery in terms of chemistry, capacity, materials, and type, including also information about the range and charging. So where, for example, you can draw insights on how linear can be the charging curve of a given car against the starting point, the peak discharging power the car can achieve in a given time. And next to information about power and torque of the electrical system, of course. And this is also combined with all the insight that we have seen so far about the consumer angle. All these elements are kind of holistically put together in a tool that is now made available for clients. As I briefly said, I mean, we are going to have now Peeyush coming in, and we are going to take you through a set of insights that we have been drawing from the research, and we classify by the technical parameters we have seen so far. Yeah, I'm happy to hand over to Peeyush for this second portion.
Thank you, Claudio, and thank you everyone for joining in. Good morning. My name is Peeyush. I'm Senior Research Analyst at S&P Global Mobility. I come with experience in electrification technology, its cross-domain applications spanning to propulsion system designs, batteries, charging, and vehicle attributes. In the next couple of minutes, as Claudio mentioned, I'll take you through some of the key data-centric insights from our tech module, covering the vehicle performance, range, charging, and the regenerative braking aspects. So starting with the vehicle performance and capabilities. So when we look at the regional trends in the performance, such as the top speed and 0 to 100, what we see is that North America and Europe are clearly standing out as the strongest markets for the high performance electric vehicles. North America leads the pack with the highest average speed of about 209 kilometers per hour and the fastest 0 to 100 acceleration in just 5 seconds. This shows that there is a strong emphasis on delivering the performance-oriented EVs that match or even surpass the traditional IC cars or the sports cars. Europe follows closely with an average top speed of about 204 kilometers per hour and acceleration at around 6 seconds. This reflects that Europe is in the competitive positioning, balancing both speed and efficiency in its EV lineup. Moving to the Greater China and Japan, Korea, what we see is that there are similar profiles. Top speed in the range of 179 to 186 kilometers per hour on the average basis, and the acceleration just about 6 seconds. So these regions appears to be aligned in the technology and the market approach with strong but slightly less aggressive performance metrics compared to the US and Europe. And finally, South Asia lags behind with an average of about 179 kilometers per hour and the slowest acceleration at 7 seconds. And this may be driven by a couple of factors such as the market maturity in these regions, different consumer preferences, regulatory environments, and maybe prioritizing the affordability over the efficiency. So overall, what we see here is in terms of the performance, there is a clear divide between the North America and Europe, pushing the performance boundaries, while the Asia, especially South Asia, seems to be charting more toward a conservative path. So next, coming to the top speed and what we see in the different PSD types. Traditionally, speed was a key differentiator for the sports and the premium cars, and electric vehicles were often carried out with the performance of, with the perception of being slower. And that's no longer the case when we look at the data today. So today we are looking at the range extended EVs, plug-in hybrids, and the pure electric vehicles here, and they all compete on equal terms when it comes to the performance. The electric motor gives an EV an edge in terms of the acceleration, that is delivering the instant torque and the sharp takeoff. But as the vehicle approaches to the maximum speed or the Vmax, what we see is that that advantage actually tapers off. And that's where the influence of the combustion engine is still visible across the different propulsion systems. It's also worth noting here that in the broader market, averages can be skewed. Small cars, which are designed primarily for the urban use, naturally bring down these averages and top figures. This doesn't mean that EVs can't compete at the high end, but actually highlights how diverse the market has become now. Looking ahead, as the battery electric vehicles become more dominant propulsion type, the development race is going to shift. And instead of focusing on the pure speed and powers, we'll see automakers will need to prioritize the other factors as well, the range, charging, convenience, cost, and sustainability. So performance will remain important, but it will not be the only headline of the story of the EVs. And we'll explain the other aspects in detail in the next couple of slides. So as I mentioned, the performance is actually on one side where what we can see is no longer actually a bonus, and it's an expectation from the customer. What do you mean by this is one of the most noticeable benefit moving forward from the IC engines to the battery electric vehicle is the improvement in the acceleration. Even in the mainstream car market, we see that the consumers are now expecting vehicles to feel quick and responsive. And sometimes that wasn't actually always true in case of the IC era. When we compare across the different vehicle types, the advantages of the BEVs become clearer. And what we see in the SUV, in the MPV, and the van segments, the battery electric vehicle deliver at least 10% average performance gain in 0 to 100 acceleration when we compare that with the best propulsion system design. And that's a significant improvement, especially in the vehicle categories where the weight and size typically work against the quick performance. While looking at the performance cars or the passenger cars, the gap is even more striking. We see that around 14% of the performance gain when moving from plug-in hybrids to the battery electric vehicle. This means that BEVs aren't just keeping up with the traditional performance benchmarks. They are actually redefining them across nearly every segment. And the takeaway is simple, that electrification isn't about sustainability in detail, but also it's also about raising the bar for the driving dynamics, making acceleration performance as a standard expectation. So next, this is to showcase how the new players are actually shaping the the market of the EVs in terms of performance. And one of the most exciting shift that we are seeing is how the move to the battery electric vehicles is opening doors to all those new players to compete directly with the high performance space. Traditionally, acceleration and torque were dominated by established cars, supercar brands such as Ferrari and McLaren. To put this into context, Ferrari 12 cylinder delivers about 678 newton meters of torque, while the McLaren GTS comes about 360. Both are impressive figures for the IC vehicles, but when we try to compare that with that of the emerging BEV space, we see that the Ferrari's upcoming electric coupe is projected to deliver over 1100 newton meters of torque. And while the Chinese brands such as Zeekr and Lotus, especially with the Yangwang, are pushing beyond that, some approaching even 1400 to 1600 newton meters. And this is not about the torque anymore. It's all about what it means in the real world performance. IC supercars typically post 0 to 100 times in about low 3 seconds. BEVs, by contrast, are consistently hitting about 2 seconds, which means that they are actually beyond the threshold. What makes this shift even more remarkable is the role of the new Chinese entrants. Premium brands like Yangwang, as I mentioned, which is a part of the BYD group, are stepping up directly into the territory once reserved for the likes of Ferrari and McLaren. And the advantage of the these simple drivetrains with no gearbox, reduced mechanical drag, they are competing on the equal terms, if not surpassing the legacy OEMs. So what we have seen is torque and acceleration are no longer the exclusive performance differentiator. In fact, the competition is shifting toward the brand identity and driving experience. And the level playing field is already being leveled by the BEVs. Moving to the next part, when we speak of the trunk and the front dimensions, which comes under the storage. So storage is another area where regional differences actually stand out if you look into that from that point of view. Europe tends to prioritize practicality, consumers value efficiency, and the well-defined storage. While in contrast, what we see in the US market, it emphasizes more on the utility with a larger trunk and the front spaces to suit more outdoor family and heavy duty use cases. If we look at the numbers, the median trunk size in North America stands highest at about 770 liters compared to with just 488 liters in Europe and 475 in Japan and Korea. Greater China averages about 465 liters, while the South Asia is toward the lower end with 402 liters. This shows that how much bigger American vehicles are designed and how regional preferences shape the vehicle packaging. Some same trend continues with the frunk as well. And in North America, what we see is the medium frunk size is around 133 liters, driven by the models such as Ford F-150 Lightning, the Hummer EV, and the Rivian R1T, all of which offers more than 300 liters upfront. And Europe, on the other hand, averages just about 35 liters. But Japan and Korea have virtually none, since these regions are mostly dominated by the hybrids and engines occupy most of the space. Greater China averages about 88 liters and South Asia sits around 57 liters. So from this, what we see is the pickups and vans remain leader in the trunk space, SUVs follow closely, and the fronts are emerging as the real differentiator, especially when we speak of the North American market. At the same time, many brands such as BYD and Volvo are actually not opting to include the fronts at all, showing that the storage strategies differ widely. And ultimately, the storage space has become the competitive design feature, but one where the consumer expectations are vary across different regions and across different vehicle types. So next about the towing and payload. So again, when we move from the storage, when it comes to pickups and vans, we see that the towing and payload are absolutely non-negotiable in some of the markets. In fact, they form the cornerstone for trust for the buyers, particularly in the North America. Looking at the towing capacity, what we see that North America again sets the global benchmark. The median towing for the pickups here is over 4,200 kilograms, far ahead of the Europe, which is around 2,600 kilograms, and South Asia is roughly at 2,800 kilograms. In SUVs, America again dominates, averaging nearly 2,000 kilograms, compared with the Europe at about 1,600 kilograms. This is reinforced by standout models such as Rivian R1T and Tesla Cybertruck, both rated close to 5,000 kg, and the large SUVs such as Cadillac Escalade, which comfortably handles more than 3,600 kg. So in Europe, what we see that the iconic models such as Land Rover Defender, Range Rover Sport remain strong contenders for towing. And meanwhile, in Japan, in Greater China, the pickup brands from the brands like Ford and the Photon, along with Isuzu's series vans, are playing the more regional needs. But overall, towing is less of a focus less of the focus in that market. Switching to the payload capacity, the story shifts slightly. Vans becomes the leader there. In North America, models like Ram ProMaster and Rivian EDV and the Ford Transit offer payloads more than 1,500 to about 1,800 kilograms. In Europe, we see slightly different numbers, with vehicles such as Iveco and Toyota coming in, averaging the payload around 1,400 to 1,500 kgs. And Greater China stands out in even higher payloads in light trucks from Yutong and the brands like Yunchai, which stands up to 2,000 kgs on an average. It's important to note from here that the regional focus, North America and South Asia lean heavily on the pickups as a core utility vehicle, while China prioritizes payload capacity in vans and trucks rather than the towing. In fact, many Chinese EV pickups even report zero payload, showing that even rated payload and showing that towing isn't actually a consumer need there. So the pattern is quite clear. The pickups define the towing expectations, vans define the payload expectations. And depending on the region, utility is expressed very differently. For example, in markets like Vietnam and Indonesia, we are seeing a growing pickup trend that mirrors the North American preferences. And ultimately for the automakers, this means that towing and the payload are not the universal features. They are the regional deal breakers, and that can define whether the vehicle will be accepted or overlooked in those regions. Next, coming to a few of the aspects of the range and charging. This slide I have put together to compare a few aspects of the range and charging in terms of the benchmarking, because this is how most of the OEMs try to correlate and most of the insights try to be correlated. What we see is that the next big battleground in the EV space isn't just speed and acceleration. It's again going to be topped up with the range and charging as well in terms of the performance. And nowhere it's more evident in the E-segment SUV market, where we are seeing a new generation of models that will redefine the consumer expectations heading into the 2029 or the 2030. One of the clear trends is that a huge spread in the driving range across the different vehicle types. On the shorter end, we have the models like Ford Transit EV, designed for the urban and the fleet applications with around 182 miles of range. On the opposite end, we see Chevrolet Suburban EVs is targeting long distance family buyers, delivering nearly 395 miles in a single charge. This kind of a spectrum offers how the EVs are no longer about the compromise, and consumers can now pick a model tailored to their exact use. The second major advancement here is the charging time. With the adoption of 800-volt vehicle architectures and the next-gen batteries, ultra-fast DC fast charging are becoming more common. And this is becoming a game changer because it addresses one of the big concerns for the consumer, the practicality of the charging during the long journeys. From the strategy perspective, we also see different strategies and the approaches in the different makers. For example, General Motors is doubling down on maximizing the range with its upcoming E-segment SUVs. But there is a trade-off: larger batteries, pack, and extended charging times. So GM may sit slightly above the segment average here, and this highlights the ongoing challenge for the automakers finding the right balance between the range, battery size, and the charging speed. In short, E-segment SUV market is rapidly diversifying. Consumers are getting more choices, not only in the vehicle size and style, but also a specific technology mix that matters to most of them. And whether it's maximum range, faster charging, or the optimized urban efficiency. In this slide, we'll look at the evolution of the electric vehicle range specifically. And one clear trend is emerging when we look at it. The global EV experience is leveling out. Historically, North America has led the way in the range capabilities, and thanks to the larger vehicle, bigger battery packs, and the consumer expectations for driving the long distances. However, the latest data shows that the other regions are actually catching up, with Europe, Greater China, and Japan, Korea, and even South Asia closing the gaps in WLTP rated range for BEVs. This convergence reflects the improvement in the battery technology, vehicle efficiency, and as well as the charging infra that is being adopted worldwide. Plug-in hybrids, on the other hand, on the right side, we see that have remained relatively consistent over the years. The range differences between the regions is smaller, and because their design inherently balances electric motor with the combustion engine for BEVs, this leveling effect is significant, and that's what was once an advantage for North America is now becoming a global baseline across everywhere. In the practical terms, what this means for the consumer is that across different regions, uh, the consumers are starting to enjoy similar capabilities for long distance driving, reducing the range anxiety and making BEVs more viable among everyone, not just the early adopters in the market, but traditionally longer range vehicles as well. And what finally to close on here is the EV market is maturing. The regional differences in the driving range are becoming less of the differentiator, and focus is now shifting towards the factors such as charging speed, vehicle efficiency, and the features that set overall consumer expectations. Moving on to the next slide, here we've just tried to compare as a use case that an interesting trend between the normal E segment and the performance segment vehicles. And this interesting trend in EV is how it varies across the different segments. The budget and the mainstream cars are now seeing meaningful, and they have been increased in the range, giving the consumer access to the longer distance travel without even paying a premium. And this is a significant step toward making EVs practical for everyday use. And at the upper end, what we can see is the F segment vehicles, luxury and the premium models, are actually also pushing the boundaries, offering extended ranges and enhancing the premium driving experience. These vehicles combine the large battery packs, advanced efficiency, and the measures to deliver exceptional long distance capability. In contrast, the E segments are showing the limited range growth, and this appears to be largely driven by the market dynamics. These cars will need to remain price sensitive, so the manufacturers are balancing battery size with the cost and other features as well. And the key takeaway here from this particular use case is that the EV range is no longer exclusively tied to the premium models. Even the budget cars are actually closing the gap going forward. While the luxury vehicles continue to set the benchmarks, creating a more diverse market that caters different consumer needs and according to their consumer budgets. Next, moving to the next slide, which covers the case for the the Greater China, how it's setting up the pace and how it's different from the other its rivals. When it comes to the ultra fast charging, Greater China is currently setting the global benchmark. What we are seeing here, and OEMs in the region are achieving more than double the peak power output of the competitors, demonstrating a larger leadership in the charging technology. Some standout examples include the BYD's flash charger, which is capable of charging up to 1000 kilowatts, and Zeekr's fully liquid cooled system, which pushes the limit to even 1200 kilowatts, debuting in Q2 2025. These capabilities are made possible by the advanced battery platforms, such as with some of the manufacturers like BYD's Super E platform, and liquid earth cooled architectures that allow for unprecedented charging speeds. Europe, on the other hand, is poised to close the gap in the near term. What we see by 2026, several premium European brands, including the Porsche, Audi, and BMW, are expected to surpass 500 kilowatt peak power threshold, signaling a strong acceleration in their charging capabilities. North American manufacturers, including Tesla, are anticipated to catch up with the European counterparts in the midterm horizon, while Japan and Korea are likely to follow, focusing on incremental benefits in both charging speed and infrastructure. So broadly, Greater China currently leads the pack with the ultra fast, ultra high speed charging, I would say, and the other regions are racing to catch up. The competition is really driving the technological arms race that will ultimately benefit the consumers worldwide and making long distance EV faster and even more practical. Moving on to the next slide, this is about the Tesla's charging evolution. One use case to see that how the Tesla is setting up the benchmark for the charging technology, and companies continue to push the envelope, meeting the growing consumer expectations. So, looking at the platform voltage, the evolution is quite clear for Tesla. From 400 volt system using 2017 to 2024 Model 3, Tesla is moving toward an 800 volt system for the 2030 Model 3 and Model Cybertruck. This higher voltage enables a fast charging and a more efficient energy transfer, particularly important for the larger battery packs like Cybertruck's 123 kilowatt hour battery. By comparison, the Model 3 maintains a more modest 79 to 84 kilowatt hour pack, while the charging times are less constrained, but efficiency and linearity improvements still matter for it. The charging curve itself has also evolved. On the right side, what we see that the early vehicles showed a lower, sustained, higher power plateau with a steep taper as the battery approached the higher stages of the charge. Future Tesla vehicles are expected to maintain a longer, higher power plateau, allowing more constant fast charging and faster recovery after reaching 30 to 60% of the charge, which improves overall charging speed for the real world use. In short, Tesla is not just increasing the power, it's actually redefining the charging profile as well to make the experience even more seamless and suited for the larger battery packs. This is also setting up a roadmap that other OEMs will follow as the market matures. Next, I would like to cover a few slides for the regenerative braking. In regenerative braking, what we have seen that it's quietly becoming a baseline expectation for the EV drivers. It's no longer an exotic or optional feature anymore. Today, most vehicles come with some form of regenerative braking, and the manufacturers are increasingly offering manual modes that gives driver control over the strength and the feel of the braking, alongside the adaptive modes that just automatically adjust. For example, Kia EV6 offers up to 6 levels of regenerative braking, and level one is actually provide the gentle effect for the smoother ride, while the level 6 maximizes the energy recovery and extends the range. North American models often allow drivers to switch between the manual and adaptive mode on the fly, giving flexibility during the daily driving. And China is actually starting to adopt the dual mode approach, which North America is following, while Japan is influenced by Korean manufacturers and has traditionally favored the manual settings. Looking at the regional trends, what we see is that a manual regenerative braking dominates in the Greater China, with over 93% of the vehicle using manual modes in both 2024 and even at the longer term projection for 2029. Japan Korea shows a manual adoption too, growing from 74% in 2024 to about 78% in 2029. And Europe and South Asia are also increasing the manual adoption. Though adaptive mode remains significant, North America actually stands out, offering a mix in 2024 for 21% of vehicles, providing both the options as manual or adaptive. Across the industry, the overall total number of vehicles that are actually offering the adaptive regenerative braking mode is rising steadily. And the range impact of these vehicles is growing from about 525 to about 825 by 2029. So the key takeaway is very clear. The regenerative braking is no longer an exception. It's an expected feature which will further improve the range and also give driver the driving control and hence, you know, impacting his overall EV experience. And again, another one more aspect to look into the regenerative braking is single pedal driving. What we are seeing here is the global trend. And what we are seeing is moving toward advanced regenerative braking options, including the single pedal driving, which becomes a mainstream feature. And this shift is largely driven by Japan and Korea, where vehicles increasingly offer multiple manual regenerative braking modes. And this gives drivers a greater flexibility and control. A closer look at the BMW vehicle illustrates that the benefit of the manual regenerative braking modes. When the higher manual modes actually increase the higher regenerative braking strength, which directly boosts the range. Essentially, the more options the vehicle provides for the manual regenerative braking, higher the potential for the energy recovery and overall efficiency. However, there is a trade-off. The stronger the regenerative braking would be, it would feel more abrupt to the drivers and producing a pronounced braking effect as soon as the accelerator is lifted. OEMs are therefore balancing the number of adjustment modes with the driver comfort, cost, and desired range improvements. Regionally, what we see is that Japan and Korea lead in providing the multiple manual modes, while China and North America offer fewer options. And this reflects different market priorities. Asian market are focusing on driving flexibility and performance, while the other regions are emphasizing on simplicity and usability for everyday life. And from this side, what the final outcome would be that the regenerative braking, including the single pedal driving modes, is no longer a niche feature as well. It's evolving into a standard expectation, with OEMs carefully balancing between the energy efficiency, driver experience, and the cost. So with this, I think that's all from my side. I will next hand it over to Claudio to cover a few aspects of the benchmarking and then followed by the conclusion.
Yeah, thank you very much, Peeyush. Was quite insightful, and I'm sure we are going to get a lot of questions, and we will be happy to answer in the Q&A session. But before wrapping up and open the Q&A, yeah, we wanted to give you a little bit on highlight of what the data can do and how the data, the different insights that we gather from Peeyush today, how this can be combined all together. Of course, I mean, the tool has itself a very great portfolio of analytics in which you don't need to digest all the data, but you can pull out the charts you want that can actually bring you to compare different cars across all the different attributes. And in the next couple of slides, what I wanted to do is to try to show you what you can do with the data still outside the potential of the Autotech Insight dashboard and analytics. You can still pivot the data as you want. And while doing this exercise, we realized that there are some elements that can somehow disappear when you are not looking at the data in a more holistic view. And we draw like 2 slides about kind of use cases. The first one is about the pickup, the one that we have in the screen now. And what, as you see from the left-hand side, we put together like four competitors operating in the pickup industry, and try to compare them all across a set of information in terms of acceleration, top speed, dimension in terms of trunk and front size, in terms of capacity, so payload, towing capacity, as well as the range. And it's quite interesting because you can see that, for example, the trade-off between range, performance, and functionality can be effectively seen. And especially if we select the pickup number 3, we can see that this car is supposed to have a longer range with a very good acceleration, but in terms of payload and towing capacity, they are the vehicles that will operate in a better form. And these, together with understanding of the consumer and the market you are targeting, can definitely help you on deciding the proper technology you want to apply to the cars when it comes to transitioning from internal combustion to pure electric vehicles. And the other good insights that we wanted to show is in the next slide, and is a slightly different use case in this specifically. And we wanted to compare different nameplates coming from different regionals OEMs. So what you can see in the screen is one car selected from different, from Chinese, Korean, European, North American, and a European mass market brand that we wanted to compare across in light of the 5 factors highlighted into the spider diagram. So in terms of battery capacity, system voltage, range, charging linearity, and peak charging power. And again, we can see that, of course, the Chinese OEMs, and specifically this Chinese nameplate, is specifically well positioned in terms of peak charging power. So we know that some Chinese OEMs are now capable of rating the car or achieving 1 megawatt of charging peak power. But what we wanted to show you is the capability that tools offer you today on, for example, comparing the capability of achieving certain power output together with the capability of maintaining this power output for a longer time. And this is a case, for example, where the Korean OEMs are actually better positioned than the Chinese ones. Or the other interesting use case can be in terms of range and battery capacity and range. So we can see that we have a set of cars, some such European premium cars, that are offering a higher range than North American counterparts, but actually having the same battery capacity, which goes back to the superior efficiency we are having. And I think, yeah, we can definitely draw some conclusions here. And we have heard from Peeyush, we are having a market which is changing from a technological push to a consumer pull. So the consumers are really playing a more relevant role into the industry, and we need to hear that. And that's why we are also taking into consideration our consumer data. The final aim is probably less related to dollars and money, but is more like trying to put the right position into the right market with the right capabilities. And in this and this is also one of the opportunity why we develop this tool. And the other conclusion is about the regionality. So as we listen from Peeyush, we have some attributes that are going to change on a region base. So as soon as you start planning your development and your vehicle design, you need to take into account also the nuances coming from the regionality. These are the major conclusion. Before wrapping up, let me just see what has been the results coming from the poll questions, and we can see that the successor of the option was the option B, between 20 and 40% in terms of percentage of people you think are open to buy an electric vehicle in the current scenario. I would say we are higher than that. So we have an industry which is probably higher position than what has been drawn from the perception we were having here, and but still not far off from there. And so which of course is necessary for the industry to start hearing more from the consumers before designing. For all the ones interested in the product, please reach out to us. We are also offering a free trial, so we are happy to hear back from you also in terms of how this tool can help you. I'm happy maybe to open up for the questions, but let me see. I know we are getting some questions already. So yeah, Peeyush, let me pose you some of the questions we have got here. The first one is about the regional trends and implication seen in the BV charging time. So what type of regional trends we are assisting when it comes to BVs and the charging time across the different global markets?
Thank you, Claudio. So if we try to categorize the BEV charging time, we might have to see it into sort of a different buckets. Let's say we categorize them into three segments with less than 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and more than 30 minutes. So the distinct regional trends we have seen that are emerging. Based on our data, historical data for 2024 and 2023, we have seen that the North America leads with the highest share of the vehicles that achieve charging times less than 20 minutes and driven by the widespread adoption of the ultra-fast charging infrastructure. In Europe, the majority of the vehicle will fall within 20 to 30 minutes charging window, reflecting a stronger focus on standardizing the fast charging. While in China, Greater China, we see a larger share of the vehicles charging time exceeding beyond the 30 minutes. So, and looking ahead, when we try to look till the end of the decade by 2030, according to our forecast, we see that the distribution is expected to become even more balanced across all these three charging buckets. And this shift will primarily will be driven by the broader mix of EV models across different vehicle segments because there are limited vehicles across different vehicle segments. And greater accessibility of the charging technology will also move it forward. And this will enable a proportionate spread across all these three segments by the end of the decade. Hope this answers.
Okay, okay. Thanks for answering. We are receiving a lot of questions, so just let me remind you all that all the questions that won't be addressed today live will be answered by mail. So you will receive a mail from us with the answer to your specific question, and we can of course reconnect to get more insights if you need it. Here's another question I'm having is, how is the adoption of one pedal driving and regenerative braking preferences change across regions and EV models? And I know there is another question about maybe explain a little better the definition of one pedal versus versus the other options,
Yeah.
adaptive versus regenerative braking.
Yeah. So actually, I see that there is another question. I'll try to blend all together at once and try to explain first adaptive versus the manual. So what we see in the adaptive is that there is no flexibility to driver to choose how much regenerative braking the vehicle will offer. While when we speak of the manual one, there are options either through the some button on the vehicle or through the multimedia mode or even at the steering. For example, a couple of Kia models have the shifter pedals on the steering wheels, and these pedals allow the users to choose how much regenerative braking they want. So by manual, we mean that the driver can change the amount of braking it can have. And the higher the amount of braking, higher the regenerative effect or the energy recovery, but more the discomfort as well. Because as the braking will increase, there will be a sudden jerk the driver will feel while driving. Extension of this is one pedal driving, where in one pedal driving, as soon as you lift off the gas pedal or foot from the acceleration pedal, the amount of regenerative braking is generally higher that, as I mentioned, toward the higher side that allows driver to even use it as a brake even in the in sort of a city commute. So when you take your foot from the pedal, the braking impact will be that higher that you might not even need the brake pedal to press for the stopping the car in the normal scenario, except the emergencies. So that's where the one pedal driving comes. And many of the cars toward the higher end side are actually favoring this one pedal driving because this gives customers additional feature which many customers like. Speaking of the adoption toward the multiple regions, what we have seen is the North American drivers often embrace one pedal driving, and the popular EVs that include one pedal are Tesla Model Y, Model 3, and various Ford models. In Europe, the adoption is sort of mixed due to the manual driving legacy, and some users prefer the traditional coasting feeling because many users, even when I drive a car, I like a coasting feel even more often than having a jerk kind of effect on due to the regenerative braking. And while the other adoption regenerative braking modes are available, but the key offerings from Europe that offer one pedal I could recall is Renault 5 and VW ID4 and ID7 as well. In China, many EVs come with regenerative braking, but not true one-pedal driving, because Chinese market is somewhat not too convinced about the one-pedal driving. And couple of leaders like BYD, Seagull, and I remember Dolphin emphasizes regenerative braking, which allows more conventional driving. In Japan and Korea, as I mentioned, Kia's, many of the Kia models, for example, EV3, EV6, and Hyundai iX 5 and iX6, integrate this strong regenerative braking system with one-pedal driving options. A long, elaborate answer, but I hope it covers a couple of aspects from different questions.
It's good. I think we addressed two questions at the same time, which is very good time wise. And thanks for that. I do have another question, which is mainly more about the performance. So what's the role of E-segment SUVs when it comes to range improvements and competition in the future?
Okay. So when we look at the E-segment market, it has actually becoming the most aggressive innovation hub for the mobility in that sense. And if I take a look at the snapshot for last year or even 2023, you've seen that the Chinese brands, which include BYD, Geely, and Huawei, are actually competing head to head in that particular luxury segments. And these are actually competing with a couple of incumbents such as Mercedes and BMW. And range, performance, and advanced driver tech has actually emerged as a primary differentiator for these segments. The average EPA rated range for the E segment currently sits about 326 miles, which signals that there's strong focus on the premium. And a couple of benchmark for each segment I could recall is Jaguar Land Rover, which sits around 200 to 80 miles, and Range Rover, which again sits about 270 to 300 miles per charge. And when we try to compare that with the outlook for 2029 or 2030, we tend to see that the market will evolve, and moving from Chinese to, we will see the German big three will come in, such as Audi, BMW, and Mercedes-Benz. These are actually accelerating the electrification strategies, not just for the luxury, but to lead in the range and efficiency as well. And by 2029, what I mentioned, 326 miles per charge for 2023, it will improve up to 360 to 370 miles by the end of the decade. And this actually reflects that industry is actually pushing toward a long distance range, especially for this luxury segment of the E segment.
Okay, no, that's good. I have probably a kind of a question for you, Peeyush. Let me see whether we can try to answer in a proper manner in really a couple of minutes. But the interesting question is about why certain markets where they have a very restrictive, speed limitations should have a demand of higher max speed cars, and if you have any perspective of that on that.
Sorry, could you please come again? I think
Yeah, the question is about, some markets will have some restriction in terms of high speed. So do we think, I assume transposing the question is, do we still think that, BEVs with high performance will still be demanded in light of the restrictions? I know it's something that probably falls more in the consumer angle rather than the technology module, but yeah, I don't know whether you have you have had any thoughts on that.
Yes, actually, what we have seen is that yes, couple of markets do have restrictions. For example, Japanese market is somewhat in the range of 180. Couple of European markets have 250 kmph restriction for the top speed, but these does not control the OEMs. What we have seen to reduce their engineering capabilities and provide a lesser top speed car, because there is another market which might not have a restriction. For example, for a Japanese car being sold in Japan, if they have to sell it out in North America or the European market, the restriction actually increases further, right? From 180 to they can go up to 250. So what we are covering is mostly the engineering side of it, or basically how much the capabilities the vehicle is having, rather than what the market puts a tag on, that this market you can't sell beyond 180. It's become a very monotonous, fixed, data-centric thing that, okay, Japanese market, you can't go beyond 180. But actually, what we want to tell is, what's the capability of the vehicle based on the motor, based on the performance characteristics and other aspects of the vehicle. So that's what I could cover in short.
Okay, no, that's good. That's good. Thanks. Yeah, maybe very probably the time for the last question is when it comes to acceleration time. They are asking about what we are comparing at the moment in terms of BVs. Is it a peak short-term performance or long-term performance?
We are here covering the 0 to 100 short term time period. What's the best time period the manufacturer declares for 0 to 100 or 0 to 60? So, in terms of performance rating, whether through the manufacturer or, if not given by the manufacturer, what the engineering capabilities allows the vehicle to reach from 0 to 100, we are covering that scenario here, not the long term, because performance ideally is how quickly the vehicle can accelerate from 0 to 100 kmph as soon as you try to get the maximum out of it.
Yeah, there are. Okay, this is good. There are a couple of other questions that really relate about the charts we have shown. Probably the best thing is to reach out separately and explain that certain drops are of course related to the underlying volumes or maybe some of the nuances behind it. Yeah, I think for now we can probably close it, and we really would like to thank you all for staying with us and to listen our podcast, our webinar. Peeyush and myself will remain at disposal for the tech module and to digest more what is there, as well as to answer all the questions. We will reach out to all the other pending ones. I just want to remind you the next webinar we are going to line up that is going to happening into the next few days. It's going to be a lightning one, so please bear with us and try to join this as well. It's going to be very insightful. And thanks again for joining and for staying with us. And I wish you a very good rest of the day. Thank you all.